Hello, Martin.
Can you hear me, Michael? One, two, three.
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm on a smartphone in the middle of nowhere in Germany.
Well, the reason I signed in early is I'm doing a technology test. I now have three Wi-Fis all on the same modem, and I can hear you just fine. We'll see how it goes. But typically, if I've got my phone on Wi-Fi, my other HP on Wi-Fi with several browsers open, I mean, I've got four browsers open with about 20 tabs each. I've upgraded my memory and my Wi-Fi and my computer, so I'm doing an aerospace test here.
Uh-huh.
Some of my clients in aerospace gave me a
Okay,
hint that some of my clients told me what kind of AT&T
good.
settings I should do to avoid any problems with bandwidth. I don't know how much bandwidth I'm using, but hopefully
Mhm.
AT&T is not going to raise my rate on my bill.
Oh, okay.
Well, for you,
Interesting. Yeah,
you
so
might
at
want to
least
try
you
it, Martin. You
know
might want to
what
try it.
works.
I don't know who your internet service provider is, but apparently there's new technologies just in the last few months that give small accounts like us working from our home office, or even if you're in the office, you might want to talk to your internet provider. There's something new that prevents any problems with bandwidth.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, but currently I'm on my smartphone in a 5G network or even 4G. Yeah.
But
So because
do you have other computers on the same modem? Are you connected?
nothing, nothing. I'm traveling in Germany currently,
Oh, you're traveling. Okay.
and I'm not in Singapore. I'm going from. I have lots of errands to run in Germany. When I'm in Germany, which is not very often, maybe twice a year, then I have so many errands to run. And right now, I'm going from. I actually had a very interesting innovation meeting just right now with an IP service provider who wants to adapt to the new age of artificial intelligence. And that means that they need AI. And that means that they cannot simply. I only realize how innovation resistant my own area of work is. My all my colleagues, they are stuck in the processes and technology of the last century, and now with the generative AI, this comes to an end.
You mean in
And
terms of patent filing, Martin? Your people who are stuck, you're saying are in your patent office?
yes, yes, yeah, not only the attorneys, but also applicants, and also, as you say correctly, the patent offices. I have a very funny encounter. The European Patent Office um, annual quality check, and they invite to the check. So I mean, selected patent office, then invited, and those with the reputation, they do a quality check. You get 100 files, and then you can decide whether or not the examiner likes did a good work or not. Or yeah, and then we can contribute to improving processes and how things are done. And yeah, so I had the first meeting for this year's because I'm a member of one of those committees, and surprisingly, I'm a mechanical engineer by training, but surprisingly, they put me into the digital committee, and the reason being because I'm doing so much AI, and so I will introduce the use of AI in this review process. So from next year onwards, we would do 5 times the amount of files in the same amount of time. And I found it interesting that even the patent offices are now using AI for um, tasks that are not immediately related to the grant of patents, because that's still supposed to be very human driven. Yeah. So
Well, Martin,
yeah.
Martin, I hate to sound skeptical, but my own experience just on intellectual property work with ChatGPT, I did a search the other day with the name of an inventor, and I just asked ChatGPT, give me all his patents issued in the United
Mm,
States in the last 50 years. And it came up with only about 10, and this guy has like 60. When I went back and forth with ChatGPT, finally I had to give enough prompts with subject matter that they started finding some of, even for patent searches. I've tried it over the
yeah,
last several years and it falls flat on its face.
yeah, but that's a very, how to say, that's a big misconception that you just give AI a very broad task and you would expect it would deliver a comprehensive result. That's that also doesn't work for patent drafting, but
Well, even
it works.
IBM Watson, back when I used IBM Watson 15 years ago, I used it for patent searches, Martin,
Mm,
and it was much, much better. Even USPTO.gov, of course, is much better because it's impeccable in terms of the data. But
okay.
AI is to me, I got to look at your algorithm again, but if you try to file that iris scan patent with your algorithm, you saw that iris scan when I sent you years ago, it
Hmm.
falls on its face. And it's not that your algorithm is incompetent, but it's kind of insufficient.
Hmm. Yeah, that's my observation. So let me check
Well,
this
and,
now.
and
We
again,
started.
for
We
for
are
patents
two
for
minutes
patents that are
2 minutes into our meeting. So let me check who is here because I
okay.
don't. I only have my smartphone, so I do not even know who is here
Hey, Martin.
now.
Hey, Martin, do you hear
Stefan,
me?
and then so we are three. Yes, I hear
Martin,
you
do you
loud
hear
and
me?
clear.
You
Hello,
guys hear
Rich.
me?
1, 2, 3. Hear you loud and clear. Microsoft
Mar-
is. Can you hear me? Can you hear me speak?
You're
One,
breaking
two,
up
three.
again, Martin. You're breaking up. Hold the phone
Oh,
closer to your mouth.
your microphone is unmuted. No, I'm in the same network as before. Ah, 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 I see. Okay, let's see. It should work. Like maybe I should use the other one. Okay, I go out and come in again. And I have my then I have my yeah. I'm traveling in Germany, and that's the
Can't hear you, Martin. You disappeared.
I hear you. Yes, I hear you. I hear you.
It's better now. Better now.
Give me a minute. Give me a minute. I will switch over to another, and then it will be much better. Yeah, I should have tested this before. I should have tested. Uh,
You are audible.
yeah, but we need to improve always, right? So hold on.
Well, if you're driving, Martin, you go past a couple trees and your reception could be different. Are you driving? Are you moving?
1, 2, 3. Are you here? Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3.
We are here.
Is
You're
the
kind of
quality now
choppy,
better?
Martin. You're still very choppy.
Still very choppy. Okay, let
I
me
would
see.
say it's not your internet, it's your microphone. It's a little canny.
Okay, yeah, but the microphone that could be because I'm on the road, and then so I'm like usually what we hear from Rich. I'm just living with what I get here, and but I can still try to do better, and I will do so. I have something really Interesting. It's now connecting. Okay. Now you have the echo. And we will end this echo. Can you still hear me?
Much better.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably the reason. Yeah, I've now switched to a different operator from a different phone. Thanks, Joe, for telling me. Now I plug in the new earphone. Is it still audible? Am I still here?
Yes.
Okay, good. So now welcome everybody. Let's start. I had a very interesting talk earlier this week with Frank Mattes. Rich, you have talked with him before, right? Or you read his book? Rich, you have talked with Frank Mattes earlier, right? I had a talk with him on Monday for 2 or 3 hours or so. Hello, 1, 2, 3.
Hello,
Can you
Rich,
hear
are
me?
you there? I can't hear Rich at
1,
all.
2, 3. Okay.
Rich dropped off, Martin. I don't see him on the
Anyway,
list
so
anymore.
maybe
Rich is gone.
Okay. Yeah, but Roland is here. Hello, I've seen you. And then back to the meeting. So I had this very interesting meeting with Frank Mattes. Frank Mattes is a applied mathematician. He's about, I would say he's in his 50s, late 50s maybe. So I spent 3 hours with him in Wiesbaden, which is a city in the center of Germany, more or less. And we discussed about his book Now and New. And I found that book so insightful in many ways that I just wanted to share with you that I have immediately applied the knowledge from that book to a service provider in the IP industry in Germany. And the service provider, Michael, as we started earlier today, the service provider in the area of intellectual property, they now also need to innovate, which they never did. And if you ask Roland, he may have changed a bit in the way he's doing his patent attorney work, but not much, definitely, as compared with 30 years ago or 25 when he started in the industry. Is that right, Roland?
You must be a little bit more specific before I can answer this question.
Okay, my first question is, do you still have paper files or do you fully work electronically?
We still do have paper files.
See?
Everything is mirrored electronically, but I have to admit I'm the old-fashioned guy. For certain tasks, I do prefer paper files.
Well, Martin, for
Yes.
all of us, Martin, would you please define what does an IP service provider do?
Okay, the IP industry originally consisted of, I would say, about 6 different areas. You can also define 8 or 10, but I prefer to have 6 for simplicity reason. And the core IP service provider is originally was a patent attorney. And the patent attorney at the same time was like a lawyer, was like a consultant technically, was like a bank for paying official fees with patent offices, was a litigator, means not someone who is only doing the patent work with the patent office, but also goes to court and sues patent infringers. And then is also acts as a secretary when it was about working together with patent attorneys in other countries, because patent rights are territorial. So for each territory, you need a different patent attorney, because not most patent attorneys are only admitted to work in one territory, like the US or let's say Germany or so. And then if you have an applicant, a client who needs patents in 2 or 3 or more countries, then he would be the secretary to coordinate the patenting efforts in all those countries. But a very early time, maybe 30 years ago, the government's allowed to do the payments of the official fees also to be done by non-patent attorneys. That was very different 30 years ago when I started in the business. So this is when all those non-patent attorney IP service providers came up. And today, you can do almost everything without having a patent attorney certificate, practitioner certificate. So, yeah, and also specialization goes further. So all those services are much cheaper than 30 years ago, much cheaper. And when I started in the industry, there was a saying that a patent attorney is a money printing machine. That is no longer the case. So still we make a living, a very good one, which is good, also interesting. But it was very different 30 years ago when we also ran a little bank. And the more clients and patents you had, the bigger the bank. And then you did all the payment services for the clients, and some even had access to the client's bank accounts, and so on and so on. So this was a patented IP service provider is all this. So what you see as an applicant, you would only see a patent attorney as a lawyer who sits in an office and waits for the inventor to show up with his invention and then would draft and file a patent, correct? That's what your idea was of an IP service provider.
Well, Martin, here, so over my 40 years of patent work with my own patents and on behalf of clients, large companies who are the assignees of patents typically have an IP firm, attorney of record. So all the ones I've dealt with for my own patents and for patents for my clients, they all have a giant firm that does everything in your list. And so AI, as I mentioned at the start of our conversation, Martin, I've done searches with these patent firms looking for infringements, and I've used ChatGPT, and it falls on its face. You're better off going out in the market and talking with people about products and services that could be infringing on your patents or on your client's patents.
Michael, I came from a very different angle. I said that IP service providers, among which are patent attorneys, now also need to innovate. Very simple.
But AI is not going to help them, in my humble opinion. It may help a little bit, but it seems to me boots on the ground are a lot better off than ChatGPT.
What I can tell you is, from my experience, and I did almost 300 trainings in the area of AI with patent attorneys, that the average speed gain is 100%. So if you take 300 patent attorneys and you give them AI training, then the 300 patent attorneys would do the same work in half the time. That is with better quality.
Well, that's good, Martin. So you basically double. That's very applaudable.
Yes.
But you're not gonna suddenly take 90% of the workload off of the AI IP firms. I'm sorry, off of the IP firms.
Yeah. I mean, this is a nice point to make. Yes, I agree with you. The AI will not make the patent attorneys obsolete, not at all, and I cannot see that happen in the future. And but my measurements are so. If you take 300 across the board, they would double the work speed. And
even fees, Martin, the firms that I've used to pay my fees, that could be substituted with an auto pay, just like you pay your bill to fill your gas tank of your car. Patent offices around the world that have a manual process for fees,
hear me out.
It's absurd.
Hear me out, Michael. So we are not yet at the end. So while the average of the 300 is maybe a gain of 50% of work time for the same amount of work with better quality, I found that there's a segregation among the 300. So about 20% of them became much faster than doubling the speed. So about 50 or 60 or so, they tripled or quadrupled or even quintupled their work speed. And to a degree that I would say that 20% Pareto principle applies. 20% of the patent attorneys can do 80% of the work with the same or better quality. That's my experience. And I also found out that 20% about of those who took the trainings, they became slower than they initially were without using AI. And if they wanted to achieve the same quality. Of course, if you put nonsense in and you get nonsense out from the AI and you're happy with the nonsense, or you don't even know what the difference between nonsense and what is good, then of course it would also help. But that's not my way of measuring the success of AI. My way is, do we get the same quality or better within the same amount of time or even much less? So yes, and that will have an impact. Just my little measurement with the 300 data points would tell me, if I run an IP service firm, how will I anticipate that wave coming? Because I can see there will be competitors who do a much better work in much less time than before. I don't even talk about price. I talk about the turnover. And I found out that those companies that have a super fast intellectual property protection can also much more super fast go to the market. So the IP, the saving in the IP area, both freedom to operate and securing IP, if you can speed that one up, then you solve a bottleneck in the innovation process. That's something that is very visible to me. And so I found out that customers...
Can you repeat that once?
What is that? Repeat
Can you
what?
repeat that? What are you trying to speed up specifically? How you worded it?
I mean, what you do is you have standard work as a patent attorney, and you deliver. If you increase the delivery speed of intellectual property, which is both securing intellectual property and passive freedom to operate studies, if you can speed up that, then you solve an important bottleneck in the area of a product cycle. And that is over linear, is exponential, because once you have removed those weeks, those waiting weeks or even months for getting the clearance to show your latest development, if you reduce that to hours or days at the most, then the R&D departments can go directly and test the market response without fearing that they would produce their own prior art that later anticipates their own innovation. So it doesn't get protected anymore. So if you can speed up that's a crucial bottleneck in reducing the product cycle. So the product cycle goes down from years to, I would say, quarters or even months. So that and that's because my experience, the intellectual property was always the slowest part in that. And,
Well,
Hey, Martin,
it's
such a bureaucracy. It's such a bureaucracy, if I may. So, like going from an accounting department to a tax preparation outside a financial firm. So much of that is paper shuffling. And the case I'd like to mention is when you file a patent with a patent firm, they file the patent. Office actions and rejection letters are such a friggin' bureaucracy. The
yes,
USPTO, and I've worked with firms on some of my international filings. Internationally, it's even worse. So,
yes.
if the patent offices around the world are still paper shufflers and bureaucrats, you have to step down 20 years to deal on their level and go back and forth with even US mail back and forth. Certified letters have to be responded to for rejection letters. It's such a bureaucracy. It's frustrating. So certainly you can easily apply AI, but the people at the other end at the patent offices also have to catch up and automate things so you're not paper shuffling around the world for 2 years to get a patent file.
But that's where we started. I'm a member of one of the quality measurement committees of the European Patent Office. And
Well, tell them to get their act together. Get their act together, not only in Germany, but all over Europe. They're bureaucracies.
But what I can tell you is they did not hire us, and I get paid for doing that. They do not hire us to tell them how good and beautiful they are. They want to hear what they can improve, and they improve. So this is
Tell
what-
them to scan checks, even for fees, for application fees and renewal fees. They still have 50 people manually accepting checks around the world and clearing the checks the way it's been done 50 years ago. They
No,
should
this-
scan all the incoming checks and apply the debits and credits accordingly.
no, Michael. We stopped the checks 5 years ago. There's no more checks.
Well, depending on the country, I can tell you that some of the renewal fees that I've filed with very large patent firms, they tell me, yeah, it's going to take 2 weeks to post. And I said, why? And they said, well, 3 people have to clear the check for the $1,800 renewal fee or whatever. It's like caveman.
Okay, what I want to say is the following: the IP service providers, and I would say more those who are in a clear competition with others, which means not the core patent attorneys, but those who do related services, they find out, especially the established ones that they need to do something about innovating so that they're still in the market when time comes, because it's very clear for them that others who are following up with am I still on? Yeah, I believe so. That they will go out of business or have much less business as compared with before. So yeah, and after talking with Frank Mattes on Monday, I only realized that the bigger the IP service provider is, the more difficult it is, because the people that are in the current now in the money making, they, number one, they have no interest in investing time and money into innovation, because for them the whole business is working already. So why should they do? Only the owner would have the insight that something must be done, because 10 years down the road that might. Then the next thing we need to overcome is to convince them that this innovation is not their enemy, which is difficult, because when you tell my measurement results and say, okay, the speed gain would be 50%, then immediately there would be the 20% that are at the lower tail end of the Gauss curve, the bell curve, that they would fear for their job. And especially when you tell them, okay, I mean, the outcome would be, if you know that 20% of the attorneys do 80% of the work anyway, that's in all of the people, in all organizations. So why don't you equip those 20% with the best software and automation that is there? In average, that would lead to doubling the performance, which brings them up from 80% to 160%. And then you also double their pay, because as they are only 20% of the genuine payroll, doubling the pay means that you pay them as if they were 40%, but the 40% to 160% of the work. And the other 80%, they are redundant, in the best way redundant, which means they could do the same thing, but much slower. So, and if you can't add 1 and 1 together, you end up there. And once you realize that, you would just see that you need to do something, because competition will get tougher. And I'm not even talking about price competition. I'm talking about speed competition. Because people don't really care about the price for IP, because as compared with the total cost of R&D and innovation, the costs for IP are minor. It's really neglectable. And so the service provider, therefore, they don't need to be so cheap, but they need to be fast and good and reliable. And if you can improve that, I mean, I believe that's an incentive. And that's when I'm talking with them. And the bigger they are, the more difficult this is, because the power of the now is so big. If I speak in Frank Mattes' language. Rich, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say earlier that, what you were referring to with those improvements really allows for time to market, right?
Yes.
And be able to get to market that much faster. That's all.
Yes. And yeah, but that's important, right?
That's huge. It's huge.
Yeah. So if you have patenting times of days or hours as compared with months as before, then and all this adds up. So all what I also found out, once you install a patenting cycle where you help the innovators, the boots on the ground that do the R&D, to save time on the bureaucracy, means to explain a patent attorney how the invention works. If you take away the workload from them to do so that they spend maybe an hour or so on the phone instead of a day at home in preparing a meeting that takes 4 hours and then answering 5 emails after the meeting until everything is fully conveyed to the patent attorney. If you can do that in 1.5 hours, then these people, they get encouraged, and then they invent more and they come up with better solutions and faster, because they know in 1.5 hours they are done with their IP work, and then they can go back to what they love to do most, which is to do R&D. So if you can take away those dead times, I would say, that gives your R&D people additional motivation. So even one more reason, but what I can tell you is that the people in the existing system, and that's also Frank Mattis, and he will be on the 18th, by the way. On the 18th of September, he will be the speaker for the ICI, the Chamber of Commerce meetings. So we will talk about that and discuss it. And he explained to me from a corporate perspective how this is to be seen. And corporate is very different from the typical size of the companies we are working with. We are working mostly for small and medium-sized enterprises and startups, where the founder or the owner of the company still has a very big say in what happens and what not. While in a corporate area, I always found there's too much bureaucracy and too many voices and too much noise, too much difficulties to overcome. And but I found out that those large IP providers, they are corporates and they think like them, and they cannot just replace a typewriter by a PC, a computer, a desktop computer. It was not so easy for them because there were so many requirements in the process and the changes and the black hats that need to be addressed. So yes, so even for the IP providers, the same problem applies. And the bigger they are, the bigger the problem, because the less important the individual work. But for coming back to what patent attorneys do, Roland, you're a patent attorney. I bet that your firm has much less annuities or renewal fee payments as compared with 20 years ago.
Yes, might be true, because as several other people, especially Michael, said, if you deal with large clients, they handle everything in-house. So what the patent attorney did previously for smaller clients is automatically done by the large clients by themselves.
Yes.
So it's true, we certainly have less annuity payments. We handle things by ourselves, and we even use external providers for special tasks.
Yes.
There's one thing which I would like to mention. Whenever you refer to artificial intelligence, you say it's cheaper, it's faster, and it's better.
Yes.
Where comes the better from? I mean, let's
very
say...
simple.
Okay, explain.
Just a very simple example. You remember in the old times when you did patent applications, and I mean, you're a biologist, so your patent applications do not have so many reference numbers usually. But if you're in engineering, then, and you work with devices, yes, there are reference numbers or even circuitries. And also with the new AI tools, you have very consistent reference numbers throughout the patent application. And I've seen cases where where we spent half a day in court discussing a reference number, a wrong reference number. And even worse, when you have AI, you would use the same term for the same component in the device throughout the entire patent application. When you did all this manually, and I better say orally, because you dictated mostly, at one point you called this one unit.
Martin, you are speaking to the term single source of truth.
Okay, yeah. Before we had a connector unit, and then 2 pages down, suddenly the connector unit became a connecting unit, and then 5 pages it became a connecting device, and then it's back to connector unit. And throughout the patent application, the one and the same piece had 5 different names, and there was no consistency in that. And this has stopped with the introduction of AI. I can tell this is very clear to me, and that gives much better patent applications. Also, there's less clarity issues in patent applications because the AI will tell you what term is unclear. At least the modern software is doing that. So these are just 2 of, I would say, felt like 15 different areas where the quality of patent applications improved by using software for drafting them. Roland, back to you.
Okay, yeah, that merely means that AI is doing what every reasonably trained patent attorney should do by himself. I can assure you I've done enough mechanical engineering applications to know the problems with reference numbers and stuff like that. And of course, I also know the importance of having consistent language throughout the application. In some cases, you even want to differentiate. You want to introduce separate terms for neighboring entities, which I, as a patent attorney, can handle quite well. I'm not quite sure, but an artificial intelligence can handle that. But the main problem is the following. Whenever I outsource something, I always hear the argument, it's better, it's cheaper, and whatever positive quality you can imagine. But does the AI provider take any responsibility for the output? And I think the answer is no. So what I have to do in the end is I have to take a look at the result produced, and it's my accountability to say yes or no. And that's
but if you do the same, if you do the same in half the time, why not? You produce the same result in half the time, why not?
Okay, the same result. Give one invention description to 3 patent attorneys, and you will get 3 different drafts for a patent application. And all of them will be good, I think so. So if I let AI do that, I don't know whether I would have come to the same result. This is something which bothers me because the responsibility of a patent attorney, that's a long-term commitment. You write something, you apply for the patent, you hopefully get it granted, and maybe 18 years down the road, you will be challenged by your client who says, okay, why did you write it this way and not the other one? Because if you had written it in a different way, we could act against the competitor now. So I rather spend 2 more hours in thinking about a claim than doing the claim in 10 minutes, but getting a claim which I would not have drafted myself in the same way. This is what worries me.
Yeah, good point that you make. And what I can tell you is there are systematic ways to prevent this from happening. And those systematic ways only work if you use AI. And it's not done by doing putting in 2 hours more brain work. It's definitely because that's not systematic. My experience is that patent attorneys learn from their own mistakes made earlier. And it depends very much on the patent attorney you're talking to, whether or not this patent attorney is able to do a patent application that is, I call those litigation grade, even 18 years down the road.
Say, Martin,
yes.
can you address patents that a good patent firm would be optimistic in filing, but they will tell the client, look, you're going to get limited coverage because of the prior art. Can you talk about patents that prevail, but they're very limited because of so many other prior art patents?
Yeah, but there's a way to deal with that problem. in a systematic way. And what I can tell you is that the innovation industry, the IP industry, never went down that road to the end. And what I can tell you, I do. And I'm using AI because I know how to use it and I know how to program it to improve that. And at the same time with lesser costs. And there are ways, and that's part of innovation. And I can tell you already that the same reaction with the now and the new applies to that area because I can see it happening under my nose. So if you tell people, look, this is how you do it, they first don't believe it, then they realize how it is done, and then they say, oh, okay, I don't want it for this or that reason, but I don't want that. And I also don't want to think about how to improve from here because I just want to have it done the old way. Don't change my way of making money. I'm good with that. So that's the typical reaction. And when discussing with Frank Mattes, I realized that this is not only a part of the typical innovation in the corporate world, in the industrial world, but it also applies to the IP industry. And that's what I just wanted. This is where I started to discuss when we started 30 minutes or 32 minutes ago, or even 40, because Michael was here 10 minutes ahead of time. And I only realized that today, and when I explained this to this IP provider, then I could really see his eyes lightening up, because never ever before has anybody told him that. And I realize how universal this innovation principle is, because even for people who are there to protect innovation, this principle is not evident. Is something that is like, today I saw is a very experienced guy, 30 years in the industry, and today for the first time he understood the principle of non-incremental innovation. And I can tell you, Roland, and if you don't feel it yet, I can see it really happening. We have times for non-incremental innovation in our industry that will turn the entire industry upside down in a disruptive way. And it will be much faster than we are used to other innovation that happened earlier, as compared with the typewriter and the computers and so on. I don't know, how long did it take until computers replaced typewriters fully in the IP area? I believe I saw my last typewriter in 2005 or so in an IP firm.
Frankly speaking, I don't know when I saw the last one, but yeah, I think in my training IP law firm, they used typewriters because it was a convenient way to fill in certain forms. But yeah, they don't exist anymore. That's for sure.
And here as a millennial, I had an Epson DOS system in my home in 94, 93.
What is an Epson DOS system?
Epson was a computer with the DOS operating system.
DOS. Yes.
DOS. And the reason being, my parent was the first generation to do AutoCAD, to start doing drawings on computers.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That brings back memories. I mean, I typed my diploma thesis on a Commodore Amiga, and I did that because in my department, scientific department, I had asked whether there were computers available, and my boss just told me, yeah, we have some computer, and he showed me what it was. It was a typewriter connected to a screen, so nothing which really qualifies as a computer. You just could see on the screen what you additionally typed on the page. So that was ridiculous. So I turned to my own solution and wrote my diploma thesis at home. That was before the time when there were standardized systems. So Commodore doesn't exist anymore, although they had superior systems and superior technology. Yeah, but that's about how I entered into the computer age.
Yeah, I can see, but we can shortcut it. What I wanted to say is that the IP service industry now also realizes that they need to innovate because this AI is so disruptive inherently. I mean, yes, you can find examples like Michael. I asked ChatGPT do a prior art search for this company, and the search result was not good. In very short words, that was what you said, right, Michael? And
Martin. I also infringements. I think
yeah,
it's much better to have people in the marketplace
yes, of
and
course,
people at trade shows. I call it boots on the ground. I could ask ChatGPT find possible infringements on certain patent number so and so. It'll come
yes,
back. It'll come back and it'll have holes in its head. I mean, it won't
yes,
even know what's out in the market in the last 10 years.
of course. But if you use AI in that area in a more specific way, I guarantee that you can double your speed for that specific part of the work. Maybe not for
Martin,
the
I'll
entire.
use a mechanical example. Position sensitive dampening. My first patent was a metering pin and a shock absorber. And every once in a while, I go on ChatGPT just looking for prior art or infringements. It'll find prior art of position sensitive dampening on recoil mechanisms of cannons on Navy ships or whatever. But it doesn't come up with anything in automotive suspension for position sensitive dampening. And yet I know people put grooves in the tube instead of a metering pin. So ChatGPT is got holes in its head. It can't even find that.
Yeah, sure. But what I can tell you from experience, even in patent infringements, there are areas where you can double your speed, you get the same or better quality using AI or automation. I can guarantee you that.
It's like posing the question to a moron or a third grader. You're not going to if you've got a gearbox, Martin, and let's say it's variable speed transmissions or whatever. Try it on ChatGPT. It comes out looking very, very naive and ignorant.
Yeah, because you're doing it the wrong way.
Okay,
So
let's
simple.
move on.
Well, we can do that some other time. Okay.
Yes, so what I want to say is, so now applying the insight that this must change using Frank Mattes' theory. And he has written this book Now and New. And I'm writing a book review about it, which is quite complicated because it's a very, very comprehensive book, despite he leaving away so much. And he says that there are 12 or 16 areas where companies can improve the innovation process so that they get from the now to the new. And the core is that they install a transformation division within the company. And that transformation division not being a separate entity, but it's something that is that represents a culture of innovation in the whole company, tapping into resources of the entire company, but not being bound to a bureaucracy in the same way as the normal operational departments are.
It's the bridge.
Yes, this is what they call the bridge with the 4 different capabilities. And those 4 capabilities are then represented in 12 or 16, I forgot, different little areas that you can do. And you can either use one of the areas or 2 or 5 or whatever in order to improve your innovation. But the core is that, I don't know, was it Clayton Christensen who created this theory that you need to create a startup within a company and then let them do, and then only once the product is out, then you adapt it. But Frank Mattes promotes an approach where you, from minute one, you work together with the operational departments and make sure that this can be put into practice in your own company. And he also has some elements of transfer innovation, Rich, that make sure that this knowledge is not only applied in one division where a new product is made, but also others would use the same knowledge in order to improve. So it's something like a transformational machine that changes the entire company. And so that's also part of his training. I found it very interesting. And when I didn't test it or couldn't test it yet, but when today I spoke with a representative of one of those large IP service providers, he immediately understood. He understood why the now people are fighting the new people because number one, it only costs them money and time. Number two, they don't understand why they must fight for expenditures of a small amount of dollars and go through all the loops that or hoops, you call it hoops, yeah, hoops of procurement and then and all that, while the transformation, the innovation guys, they can spend thousands without even having an approval by one of their managers. So and these are only two or three of the aspects that were touched. And this innovation IP service providers today, they have the same problem internally. The procurement wants to manage the R&D, and if that happens, then R&D will not happen ever because it will be extinguished by the. It's like putting a wet blanket over them, and that would extinguish the fire that innovation needs so much. And yeah, so I explained that to them, and then they became more open for putting a transformational unit that would manage a multitude of innovative initiatives and try to find out those that make sense to be put into practice by the operational departments. And I find that quite an easy to understand model. Although I must say, he always referred to corporates, and corporates means large industries with departments and overhead and bureaucracy and so on. And then I said, why can this also apply to small and medium-sized enterprises? And his answer was no, because they don't have this structured way of thinking. In a small and medium-sized enterprise, you always talk with the owner or the founder or some of the owner's family, and they don't see innovation as systematic and strategic as the large companies. And I find that also scary a bit because we're always talking about small and medium-sized companies and startups here, right? And yeah, what is your take on that? I don't know. Rich, you're green. I can see that your microphone is on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize the question was to me, and I missed that.
Oh, no worries.
Could you repeat your question?
Yeah, sure. Frank says this systematic way only is applicable in large industries, corporate, while the SMEs, small and medium sized, don't have this.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Frank. The innovation growth problem is totally different in a small, medium-sized company from the perspective of the management process to generate that innovation and growth. In a large corporate, you have and I'm going to say, 99% of the time, you have an innovation growth, mantra along with process that the organization follows, whether that be, some type of new product blueprinting process or, innovation like we had at Parker or some other kind of mechanism.
Yeah.
That is, the Bible, so to speak, of the corporate, how do we get from market discovery to product launch, right?
Okay.
And that process is typically missing at a small, medium-sized company. They do it more by the seat of the pants, right? Whether it be from the founder's perspective of, I like that idea and I'm going to sink, $1 million into it, or I hate that idea and we're not going to do it.
Okay.
And it's sort of a self-governing thing, more of a mid-sized company, up to $500 million. I mean, now
Yes.
you start to see some process, albeit most of the time it's still very disjointed. It's, it's not clear cut, and it's still very much an ad hoc process, right?
Yes.
Where, the meetings are ad hoc, the structure of the meetings are pretty ad hoc, right?
Yes.
And there's no certain cadence to those meetings either, right?
Yes.
And that's why I agree with Frank.
Yeah. But it's quite interesting. And then how to get those small and medium-sized people to realize they need to do something. And I also spoke with the assistant of a small and medium-sized company. They have they are the leaders in handling rubber seals in the car industry. There's those seals that are used for sealing doors, car doors, and those rubber seals, they come in long sausages, if you want to say so. I believe the best expression. And
extrusions.
Yes, they are extruded, yes, but this thing is a wobbly sausage, a long sausage, 2 meters, 3 meters long. And in order to handle them, you need 2 or 3 people to carry one, and you cannot easily pack them into carriers and so. And he's the market leader in rubber extrusion sausages handling machines. And currently, I told you the car industry in Germany is doing very bad. So alone this year, the German car industry would lose something like 400,000 workers. And maybe that's a very conservative estimation, because those that are sent to early retirement are not included in that number, nor those that leave Germany for greener pastures are included. And yeah, so and this company is having a annual revenue of a 2-digit million euro thing, because you don't need so many of them in the car industry, and you can repurpose them. So if you break down one line, and you can use the old parts to establish a new line, and you don't need so many. So anyway, and I'm asking them, how do you prepare for that decline in the car industry? And it's a bit like, they even don't want to see it, but it's happening because you see it under their noses. And they were asked, can you do the same in the US? And of course they said, yes, we can. But with a 2-digit head count, they immediately found out, when they sent 5 people overseas, then half of the R&D department is gone for 2 months. And so small. And the German car industry is I mean, I don't talk about the German car industry as the brands. I'm talking about those places where cars in Germany are made. They're highly leveraging on this particular size of companies, something like 10, 20, 50, maybe 80 people, but not more. And all those people do not have the capability to easily expand into a new country. Maybe within the Europe is easier, yes, but once we talk about overseas, then it's more like a diversification than opening a new market bubble, serving with the same products. Because so much other stuff there, freedom to operate. Nowadays, I found out it's very difficult. You cannot even send 10 people to the US and they bring the toolboxes along, because then the immigration officer would ask, what are you doing here? And then they say, oh, we are from this company in Germany, and we are here to help you with better equipment from Germany for your car factory in Alabama. Then the thing that the immigration officer in Atlanta said, sorry, but I don't think that this will work. I don't give you the entry permit for that. And then they showed the letter of, I don't know, BMW or whatever, and that letter didn't help. So they were sent back. And it was because of their toolboxes that they brought along. So the immigration officer realized that they are here, that they're in the US for doing some work, which is illegal, because you cannot simply travel to the US and set up a machine. So that's a very practical example of why a German small automotive tier 3, tier 4 supplier cannot easily provide the same services in the US. And the cars, these BMWs, they are now built in Alabama. Yeah? So BMW would find others who do the same in the US, but the small and medium-sized enterprise with the few dozen of people cannot offer the same thing anymore. They need to go for something else. And that's a dilemma. That's where I'm coming from. It's also one of the reasons why I'm here in Germany, to see what is happening.
Well, Martin, you mentioned one that is very interesting in terms of quality. Noise, vibration, and harshness, and
Yes.
water leakage with these door seals are a big deal, because you bring in water into a car, and if the computer's under the driver's seat, you have a $2,000 repair bill. And then on noise, vibration, and harshness, they're not all extruded pieces of spaghetti. Some of them are actually thermoformed to be the shape of that door. And they're
Yes.
very,
Blow
very
mold injected.
well, no, they're
Yes,
not
yes.
blow molded, they're compression, and they're very sophisticated in their shape and the tolerances and the fit and finish. The Japanese spent a lot of time on these seals, and so did US car makers. And the tolerances on body quality are a heck of a lot better from Germany and Japan than they are from the US. So those seals are, in some cars, the seals value at street price could be $700 when you buy a car for $40,000. $700 goes into the door seals and trunk
Yeah,
seals.
interesting. So maybe that's the reason why this company with a very few workers and a specialization in such a high-priced product survived in Germany. But what I can tell you is that this company cannot easily compensate the loss of business that is very visible. So the German car industry will shrink by at least 50% over the next 5 years, if
But you
not
said
80.
BMW in Alabama could find a US supplier of those seals that meet the same custom
Yes.
specification that the German company could
Yes,
make. So
Michael,
yeah.
Michael, you are right. BMW for that is not a problem, but it is a problem for the small and medium-sized enterprise in Germany with their 24 workplaces.
Yeah, they're out of luck. They're not allowed to come into the US. They're
Yes.
blocked.
So what would they need to do? These people need work, right? And they work in a company that has some technical expertise. They have machine. They know things to do. So the most natural way to react to that challenge is, we need to innovate. And if you wait too long, then you may not even make it, because your old S-curve stops before the new S-curve even took off properly.
Well,
And then you're back.
one such company is Freudenberg, and Freudenberg partnered with NOK, which is Nippon Oil Seal Company, and they
Michael,
became global.
Karl Freudenberg is a 20,
Okay,
30, 40,000 company.
Yes, Freudenberg in the US is in Plymouth, Michigan, and they've been supplying door seals to
Yes,
car companies
but
for 100
yes,
years.
I'm talking about this company here that has a something like a blue ocean in Germany, and they're important suppliers to the car industry. They do not have 20,000 employees or workers. They have 20 employees.
Okay, so they've got big competition like Freudenberg. They're shit out of luck.
No, they're not competition with Freudenberg, because Freudenberg is not able to innovate that, because they're too big. They were not able to man this non-incremental innovation. And what I say is that 80% of the German car industry suppliers are like this 20 headcount company. Yes, you find always the big ones, the tier 1, tier 2, and they have big names. But this is not the size of company I'm looking at. And that's where I started off. I wanted to help them, to find out what can we do for them so that they are more successful and can survive in times where the old S-curve runs out. And the more I go into it, the more I realize that this is very difficult to impossible. And even Frank Mattes said, yeah, it could work for the small and medium-sized companies, but how do we reach them? And if we reach them, would they be open to a systematic approach if the guy who presents it doesn't meet the gut feeling of the day, because they don't have a structure that supports innovation, as you put it, Rich?
Martin, this kind of makes me think like let's take you have a hectare of land, you cut down every tree, you've sold every tree. Well, now there's no market for trees. So now you have to move on to brick making. So like,
Yes,
you just have to move on. You have to go into the next market.
yes, but
Yeah, maybe the seal company should start making seals for the appliance industry or aerospace. They need to get away from automotive because automotive is declining in Germany.
Michael, they are not making seals. They are making They're making machines for handling seals.
Okay, so they
well,
should
then
make
they're going to end up making droid bodies.
Yes, for example.
They should make machines to make rubber gloves or somewhere there's a market in Germany.
Yeah. Or maybe they start to make treadmills so that you get your treadmill back with a better data connection and no more interruption.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. I was just updating you from my field studies in Germany. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget, on the 18th of September, we have Frank Mattis here, and we can discuss this with him directly. I believe you will like it. I will publish my book review, the now and the new, by then, and I really like the book. It's more like a manual than a non-fiction book, and worth buying it. As far as I see so far, this is really a core insight or core insights that came from there. But anyway, we are at the end of the hour. Thank you again, and see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.